Imagine you have a decent job. You own a home. You have a car. You pay your bills on time. And you even manage to save some money every month. Sounds like you're doing pretty well, right? Now imagine that 10 years later, you earn more money than before. But somehow, you're struggling more. Your rent or mortgage is higher. Groceries cost more. Insurance costs more. Healthcare costs more. And saving for retirement feels harder than ever. So what happened? Did the middle class suddenly become bad with money? Not necessarily. Something much bigger is happening. And today, we're going to break down why the American middle class feels like it's disappearing and what is actually happening to middle class wealth.
First, let's clear something up. The middle class isn't literally disappearing overnight. Millions of Americans are still firmly middle class. But the financial security associated with being middle class has become harder for many households to achieve. And that's the important distinction. Because being middle class isn't just about your salary. It's about what your salary can actually buy. If your income rises 20%, but your housing, healthcare, food, transportation, and other expenses rise almost as quickly, your lifestyle may not improve much at all. And that's where the problem begins.
Let's imagine someone making $60,000 a year. 10 years later, they're making $80,000. On paper, that's a huge improvement. But now imagine their housing costs have increased. Groceries cost more. Insurance premiums are higher. Their car costs more. And they have to spend more on basic services. Suddenly, that extra $20,000 doesn't feel like $20,000. This is the paycheck trap. You earn more, but you don't necessarily become wealthier. Because what matters isn't just your income. It's the gap between what you earn and what you keep. And more importantly, what you keep and what you own.
Now let's talk about one of the biggest reasons the middle class dream feels harder. Housing. For decades, owning a home has been one of the most important ways American households build wealth. But buying a home requires more than just having a good salary. You need a down payment. You need to qualify for a mortgage. You need to handle property taxes, insurance, maintenance, and interest. And when home prices rise faster than incomes, the entry point gets further away. Then there's another problem. Even if you can afford the house price, higher mortgage rates can make the monthly payment much larger. So a home that technically costs the same can become much harder to afford. And when people can't buy, they often remain renters longer, which can make building wealth feel even more difficult.
Here's what makes this situation frustrating. It's not just one expense. It's everything happening at once. Housing, food, healthcare, childcare, transportation, education, insurance, and taxes. Each one might seem manageable on its own, but together, they can consume a huge portion of a household's income. Imagine you get a raise of $500 a month. Sounds great. But then your rent goes up $200. Insurance increases by $100. Groceries cost another $100 more. Your car expenses rise by $75. And suddenly, most of your raise is gone. You earned more, but your financial breathing room barely changed. That's what a middle-class squeeze feels like.
But there's another piece of the puzzle. Income and wealth are not the same thing. Imagine two people. Both earn $100,000 a year. Person A spends almost everything they earn. Person B owns a diversified portfolio, has retirement savings, owns a home or other assets, and keeps their debt manageable. Their incomes are identical, but their financial positions are completely different. Why? Because wealth comes from assets and accumulated savings, not just your paycheck. And this is where the middle class can fall behind. If most of your income goes toward living expenses, you have less money left to buy assets. And if you don't own many appreciating assets, you may miss out on some of the wealth created when those assets rise in value. Meanwhile, people who already own significant assets can benefit from that growth.
That's how wealth can compound over time.
Now add inflation to the equation. Inflation doesn't mean every price rises at the same speed, but when the overall price level rises, your dollars generally buy less than before. And that's particularly painful for households that spend most of their income on necessities. A wealthy household might be able to invest additional money when prices rise, but a household living paycheck to paycheck may have no extra money to invest. So inflation can create a frustrating cycle. Higher costs, less money left over, less saving, less investing, slower wealth building. And over many years, that difference can become enormous.
This brings us to something bigger. The traditional American middle-class formula used to sound relatively simple. Get a stable job, buy a home, save for retirement, raise a family, and gradually become financially secure. Today, those things are still possible, but for many people, they're no longer automatic. A good salary doesn't guarantee home ownership. A college degree doesn't guarantee a high-paying career. A full-time job doesn't guarantee financial security. And saving money alone doesn't guarantee wealth. The rules haven't completely changed, but the cost of playing the game has.
So, is the American middle class actually disappearing? The answer is more complicated than a simple yes or no. The middle class is still enormous, but many households are experiencing less financial breathing room. And the biggest divide isn't simply between people who make $50,000 and people who make $150,000. It's increasingly about who owns assets, who has manageable debt, who can save, and who has financial flexibility. Because two people can earn the same income and end up in completely different financial worlds. The middle class dream isn't dead, but it's becoming more expensive. And that's why the most important question isn't how much money do I make? It's how much money can I keep, save, and turn into assets? Because a bigger paycheck can improve your lifestyle, but ownership is what can build long-term wealth. And if you understand that difference early, you stop playing the game purely for a bigger paycheck. You start playing for financial freedom. If you want simple explanations of money, inflation, wealth, debt, and the American economy, subscribe. Because understanding the system is the first step toward getting ahead in it.